Yeah, this is good. Right. That was good, wasn't it? We're microdosing Tesla's proof of liquidity.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Beautiful.
I'm trying to get that guy, Elon Musk, to come on the show. That's why, I'm trying to look as normal as possible. So I'm going to click on this. Check it out. Oh, yeah. We're live. We definitely are live. I figured out how to use my Stream Deck even more than previous times. So, everybody should applaud me.
Very well. Very nice.
I like that stuff. So I actually also think I put some, what do they call them? Headlines. Yes, I put some headlines in these little video formats. So we're going to go over some headlines here.
Nice.
What were the biggest stories? We're gonna cover Elon Musk and Tesla and Dave Portnoy and JPMorgan and Bill Miller, and that's it. Any of those stories in particular, Max, stand out to you?
Well, what's this Elon Musk thing all about?
So, markets were in, certainly crypto Twitter, we're all like, woo! Elon Musk dumped his Bitcoin. But then Bitcoin Twitter read the statements, listened to the earnings report. And what Tesla had done is, let's look at some of the data here. So we're going to cut to Tesla bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. It increased in value by $1.7 billion. And then we see, so I am understanding this correctly. What we see is that Dave Portnoy, he interrupted. See, we're gonna have to go back to me because they went too fast. Tesla bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. It increased in value by $1.7 billion. That's a total of $3.2 billion. They sold $272 million. Get the number straight. They didn't sell at their cost of acquisition. So they made $272 million. Of course, it made their earnings look a little bit better for the quarter. And, they only sold off less than 10% of their holdings.
Right. Well, apparently, due to the sale, Elon hit some targets for the quarter, and another $11 billion in stock options kicked in. So he made an additional $11 billion in part due to this strategic sale. And it also gives, he was saying, characterizing it as a test on the liquidity front to see exactly how liquid this is, because I'm sure he gets some pushback from the board saying, we don't think this is a liquid enough asset to have on as a liquid asset on the balance sheet. So he probably thought, I can kill two birds with one stone. I can sell 10%, prove that it is liquid, and set me up to buy more. Plus, I book this profit and I get another $11 billion worth of stock options. So his net worth went up by $11 billion yesterday, effectively. So that's the status.
Right. Well, I'll tell you the point where he said this on Twitter, explained that it was a proof of liquidity, and that Dave Portnoy wrote to him. Dave Portnoy, first of all, started the day with a little video saying, oh, guess what? I bought one Bitcoin. I have one Bitcoin. And he bought it at about $48,000. He said, of course, that $48,000 was partly thanks to, I guess, Tesla selling some of their Bitcoin, and a few other whales, or certainly some spinach hands, lost some of their Bitcoin. So then Dave Portnoy jumped into this Tesla conversation, and he said, so am I understanding this correctly? Elon Musk buys Bitcoin, then he pumps it, it goes up, then he dumps it and make a fortune. Listen, I own one Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is exactly who we thought it was. Just don't be last one holding the bag, hodling the bag. Um, so that shows you how weak his hands are, right? And then Elon Musk says, no, you do not. I have not sold any of my Bitcoin, his personal Bitcoin. Tesla sold 10% of its holdings, essentially to prove liquidity of Bitcoin as an alternative to holding cash on the balance sheet.
Yeah,
So,
then Dave Portnoy came out with a follow-up video saying, oh, he gets it. Bitcoin's not a pump and dump. He was wrong. Bitcoin is pump and pump. You know, his cost basis is 48 and he's not going to sell. He's not going to dump. So he is now coming around to understanding the magic of Bitcoin, which is good. You know, it took him a while, and he understands it more now. Give him a round of applause. And so that's super cool.
yeah. So, I guess you could listen to the whole earnings report online, and it's all over Bitcoin Twitter. And the thing is that, they do establish, I guess they were comparing it to bonds and other assets they could hold on their balance sheet, which is in the billions of dollars. And, once you're above that, the FDIC insured amount in your bank account, it becomes kind of difficult to handle that much cash, right? And what they found was that it was indeed liquid. The markets, the Bitcoin markets are liquid, but also that it was much easier and faster to convert it to whatever your needs are than, say, bonds or something like that.
Yeah. They got good execution, good fills, good prices. And yeah, it should help a lot of other CEOs come to the conclusion that it is a good liquid asset to have. So, the good news keeps coming out. Of course, there's going to be people that always interpret anything as validating their negative view. And,
Yeah.
there's people that use it to validate their positive view. That the market kind of sorts it out at the end of the day. And the market's been going up for 10 years and will continue to go up, So that's it's just that this is what's going on, really.
Well, it also established that this is the wall of worry that everybody climbs as they go down the rabbit hole. You see, you got to climb a wall of worry to get down into the rabbit hole of everybody tries to talk themselves out of Bitcoin. So here you see Dave Portnoy, who already bought at 10,000, sold at like 11,000, and that was like 5 or 6 Bitcoin that he lost because he was in doubt, right? He had no conviction. He had spinach hands, lettuce hands, whatever you want to call them. Then now he's finally bought back into Bitcoin because he can't deal with Bitcoin Twitter and people harassing him. So he bought one Bitcoin, but immediately within an hour or two, he was like, so let me get this straight. Elon Musk is pumping and dumping on us, and just don't be the last one hodling his bag. So you see him trying to talk himself out of holding Bitcoin. You see this happens to many people, but he has not been enlightened yet. Obviously, he's not watching enough Orange Pill podcast, and he's watching instead the higher rated sort of pump and dump crypto channels on YouTube that spend a lot on publicists and marketing, and they're like pushing all sorts of shit coins, and he gets bombarded with that. If you look at his his tweet replies, the replies to his tweets, you see everybody pushing their bags, shilling them their shitcoin bags to Dave Portnoy. But he seems to be not quite as clever as Elon Musk or Jack Dorsey or a few other billionaires that have entered this space.
Well, yeah, this background's not technology, right? So, but he has, I think, come around to the ethos of Bitcoin. I think he is going to now really start to embrace it more, because once you start the hodl mentality, you start to really, it impacts other areas of your life as well. So and people are not necessarily interested in having their life played with in that way. They're very comfortable. Do I really want to start buying and hodling Bitcoin and have all of my belief systems challenged? And that's very unsettling for most people, and
Sure.
then others are open to it, and and others it takes a while to get to it. Some people never get to it, and they're going to go down with the sinking fiat ship. But that's what we've seen for 10 years. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to also point out an observation I made, and that is this what do you call Mark Cuban?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Speaking of a guy who became a billionaire out of luck, right? More out of luck than say like how Elon Musk has you know created quite a few companies, and is definitely much more of an entrepreneur, for example, than Mark Cuban. But Mark Cuban said, like, he tweeted something along the lines, I'm going on CNBC and I'm going to talk about, you guessed it, Dogecoin. And I realized that people like him, I think they know that's where all the cool kids are, right? They're in Bitcoin. And he doesn't understand it completely. He doesn't understand Bitcoin, but he wants to be liked by the cool kids. And he knows that a lot of cool kids are vulnerable to the billionaire thing. They're like, oh, look, a billionaire likes our toy. And they're like all excited. But he knows also that there are a load of really, 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 really smart people in Bitcoin, and they're relentless on Twitter, and that they'll call him out when he says something stupid about Bitcoin, when he displays his ignorance on CNBC. So you can't go wrong talking about Dogecoin, right? You can't show you're stupid because it's just a stupid meme coin, right? It's a joke. So you're just like, it's comfortable. It's easy to go on there and not expose yourself as ignorant about Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. It's the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Oh,
Okay.
is that where he's going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So here's a daytime audience for housewives who, they clip coupons and go to the supermarket, and they're online doing Groupon and things like that, and maybe go to eBay every now and then and auction on a knick-knack for the shelf. And so here comes Mark Cuban, who's pitching, a shitcoin essentially, and just basically hoping that the numbers are gonna, she's got a big audience. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is there going to be a flock of housewives going to jump onto Robinhood and start trading shitcoin suddenly? Maybe, perhaps, but I agree with what you're saying though, because he doesn't want to put the work in to really understand Bitcoin. So you can hide in the weeds in the shitcoin market and never really have to understand what's going on. He's just a marketing ploy to get some views or what have you. It's fine. Stay in the shitcoin area. We don't want you in Bitcoin, as a matter of fact. Just stay out, because it's all about character. And when you have weak character, you end up with shitcoins. And Mark Cuban over the last 20 years has demonstrated some pretty weak character flaws. So we don't really want him in the Bitcoin community. I would prefer to stay away, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, so I think, Elon Musk is clearly he has to come on Orange Pill Podcast and we'll talk to him about this. But clearly he's clever, he's smart, and he's a troll, right? He's demonstrated that over and over for years now, and has been tapped on the wrist by the SEC for being a troll online. So I think that's why he always like talks about Doge, right? Because he probably wants to talk about Bitcoin, but he probably can't, like he does about Doge, because of the SEC and because it's now on his balance sheet. And plus he was accumulating and doing all that other stuff. Whereas I think Mark Cuban then on top of that thinks like, what he knows, like, hey, Elon Musk is much richer than I am and much smarter than I am. And he's talking about Doge. So obviously I'll look smart and funny and interesting if I also talk about Doge.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting part of the cycle that we're in. When you get bull markets, you end up in these types of situations. We saw it in back in the 2013 bull market. There was a plethora of, at that time, altcoins. And it was That was the market. Then in 2017, you had the ICO
Mm.
market. And now we went through the DeFi market and the NFT market, and these are just spin-offs and wild. There's a huge Ponzi scheme now happening in Latin America. It just when you get into the later stage of these bull markets, all the shit flows to the top, and it's hard for newbies because they haven't been through one of these yet. Having been in the game since 2011, we've been through all three major 90% crashes in Bitcoin and the altcoin market. So kind of, have a good sense of where we are in the cycle. It doesn't make any sense to step away from Bitcoin for any reason whatsoever. It's a luxury, as I've been, coming to the conclusion that really Bitcoin maximalism is a luxury that few can afford. For whatever reason, Mark Cuban, maybe he's short of cash, maybe he's got a big margin call, maybe something's wrong with his life. He feels like he's got to go hustle some scammy buck somewhere. I don't know why, but it's sad. A lot of people who step off the Bitcoin train, it's that's not it's an unfortunate situation for them because it shows that they're in desperate times, and I pray for them as the high priest of Bitcoin. I pray, and I say a prayer for all the shitcoiners every day.
Right. I'm going to wait for you to get to. This is how many likes do we have? We have 145. Well, once it's at 250, I will start talking again. In the meantime, we'll just play the theme tune again.
What?
Orange Hill. Orange Hill.
Get it to 250. Can't go wrong with this theme tune. People might want us to like not talk. They're not going to get it to 250.
They like it.
I like that. Hit the like. See, yellow says hit the like.
Yeah, yellow.
Yeah. I had to adjust our the colors on the settings because my hair is so vibrant orange.
Oh, yeah.
That I had to adjust the color levels down because it was just like going to blow the camera lens and perhaps even melt down YouTube. It would have been like everybody would have had to run to Twitter and hashtag YouTube down. Stacy's hair took it down.
No.
So, yeah, we're at 265. So I'm allowed to talk. Speaking of dinosaurs, because I've got my Cypherpunk Now t-shirt on. See, that's Bitcoin asteroid hitting the dinosaurs, the banker dinosaurs. Max Kaiser's favorite nemesis.
Who's that?
Jamie Dimon was in the news this week. JPMorgan, of course. Oh man, we started in Bitcoin in 2011, right when we were rolled out of our crash JPMorgan buy silver campaign, which was at the end of 2010. Then, because of that campaign, John Matonis reached out to us. We discovered Bitcoin and rolled into Bitcoin. And of course, Jamie Dimon being obsessed with Max Kaiser and watching our show religiously to find out what we're saying about him, he discovered Bitcoin early because Jamie Dimon and JPMorgan were some of the earliest huge names in the Bitcoin space commenting on it, that they were always asked to comment on it from like 2011 or 12.
Yeah.
And so there are some hysterical how it started, how it's going sort of tweets from that you can find on Bitcoin Twitter. But let's play this other thing because maybe this will work this time. Okay, let's try this. Max Kaiser is still undefeated. That is from Prince of Pores. And as you can see right there, that is Jamie Dimon of JPMorgan. JPMorgan to let clients invest in Bitcoin fund for the first time. The JPMorgan Bitcoin Fund could roll out as soon as this summer. There's how it started. JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a fraud that will eventually blow up. That was in 2017. And JPMorgan to let clients invest in Bitcoin Fund for first time. So sources that is yesterday. So there you go. So what do you think of that? What do you have to say to Jamie Dimon?
Well, it was inevitable. As I've been saying, everything's going to capitulate eventually. The only question is at what price. You get the price you deserve. JP Morgan could have gotten in at $10 and $100 and $1,000. They choose to start getting active at 50, 60,000. That was a reflection of their character. And if it was up to Jamie exclusively, they would have to wait until 200,000 or 300,000. But I'm sure the board of directors has a few sane people on the board of JP Morgan. So they kind of put a bug in Jamie's ear and said, look, dude, we're not going to miss out on this business just because you've got a hard on for Max Kaiser. And so they've reversed themselves and they've capitulated. And so it's another player comes into Bitcoin. And this will add more buying pressure, etc. The market expands, price goes higher, everything clicks in. But nothing will escape Bitcoin. Nothing will escape Bitcoin.
Well, okay. First of all, I like this word to let. JP Morgan to let their clients invest in Bitcoin. It is, however, for their private wealth clients, so their wealthy clients. And the way these wealthy compete with each other is, of course, out in the Hamptons, and they're all living out in the Hamptons now. If you see the data of the exodus from Manhattan out to the Hamptons over the past year since COVID lockdowns began, and they're all comparing each other to the people out in the Hamptons, and many hedge fund managers are out there, and they're all like bragging about their returns in Bitcoin this past year, how they turned their $1 billion into $20 billion. And of course, if you're still sitting on just your, $500 million as a JP Morgan wealth client that has been kept in bonds for the past year or something, you're like, fuck Jamie Dimon. And they're calling their broker straight away at JP Morgan saying, how come, hedge fund schmo over here has just quadrupled his wealth in the past 4 months alone. And now he's trying to buy, he's doing a hostile takeover of my, oceanfront property.
Yeah, exactly right. And so they're going to, quote, let their clients own Bitcoin as if they're a gatekeeper to this product, which of course they're not. It's a joke that they're going to let them. Anybody can get into Bitcoin at any day. They can go to Swan Bitcoin and they can use Swan private Bitcoin and buy millions and millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin at the anytime you want to. You don't need JP Morgan to allow you to enter Bitcoin. Plus,
that's swanbitcoin.com/orange pill.
Yeah. And plus they're going to, of course, charge a fee for this product that they're selling you, which is unnecessary. You don't need to pay the fee. The thing about Bitcoin is that the fee is almost non-existent. You almost pay no fee. So it disintermediates away from the bank. It disintermediates away from JP Morgan. You don't need a JP Morgan. You don't need a central bank. People can transact peer-to-peer without an intermediary. They don't need a bank. They don't need a central bank to mandate this monetary policy because Bitcoin has hard-coded into the protocol its own monetary policy. Comes with its own monetary policy, and the transaction is a verification. You don't need a bank, don't need a central bank. So this is too little too late, but I'm sure they will raise a lot of money from stupid people who have inherited wealth and they don't know their ass from their elbow. But if they see Jamie Dimon at a party in East Hampton and he says, hey, let me put $1 billion into this managed Bitcoin product, charge you 5% a year, and I'll let you do that because like the old Bernie Madoff scam of billing it as really exclusive and going into the private schools. Like Bernie Madoff used to go to the private schools in Manhattan to their board meetings and their functions and let the word out that this was only very, very exclusive for the elites. And they ate that up.
Yeah.
And they all got sucked in and they all got blown away. So, Jamie Dimon is of the Bernie Madoff school of salesmanship and selling garbage products. So he'll go down that path, but it will end up with a lot of people probably buying Bitcoin, and of course that just expands the market. So he'll be hoisted by his own petard, because he knows that the more he gets people into Bitcoin, the sooner the death knell for Wall Street banks. So this is the last gasp. Within 3 or 4 years, he'll be gone.
Right. Well, I mean, I think also it shows clearly that the wealthy are looking at Bitcoin now, and they're looking at it as a store of value and a competitive. They see Elon Musk, they see these other billionaires out in the Hamptons earning more than they are, quadrupling their wealth over a year versus their, increasing by 2% maybe at best, after their fees have been paid to these large banks. But I also saw another interesting take about what's going on with these banks like JPMorgan and the others is that the build out to these central bank digital currencies, because once that happens, the Fed doesn't actually need the banks, right? Because it'll start distributing money directly to the people and small businesses, and ordinary people will be able to have a Fed bank account essentially. So they'll be getting Fed coin, and they'll be bypassing the banks, which is a lucrative business for them. They basically, the banks are the ones that create or scalp that seniorage. They're the ones that get all that money. But so there's a take that the coming CBDC situation will impact the banks the most in terms of the free money they're handed in order to distribute. But of course, they don't distribute. They just give it to their property speculator friends or hedge funds or things like that to speculate on the markets.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we know that the bank's balance sheets are a mirage.
Yeah.
Right. It's a hologram. It's
Yeah.
it's VAR accounting, value at risk accounting, where the theoretical model of what the balance sheet should look like under theoretical conditions is what they report every quarter to regulators as their net and present value. But we know that there's actually nothing there. Without the constant bailout from the central bank, that Ponzi scheme that is the balance sheet of every major bank in the United States and around the world would disappear like it did basically in 2008. 2008, banks really became insolvent, and they were replaced with even more elaborate schemes to prop up the Potemkin banking system that we are observing these days. And so when the central bank digital currency is rolled out and the Ponzi money stops flowing to JPMorgan and Deutsche Bank and not Salomon Brothers,
That's 1980s.
Goldman Sachs, right? Then the hologram is turned off and they'll disappear. And the deposits will be safe because they'll be switched over to central bank digital currency. The employees will all lose their jobs, but nobody cares about that because they weren't doing anything productive to begin with. They're all basically, just parasites, right? So and that'll get rid of it. So Jamie Dimon will go into politics. Jamie Dimon in 2 or 3 years after JP Morgan is turned off, disappears, he will be running for senator somewhere, or he'll be made finance director, chief, treasury department, whatever. He'll get a political job, but his livelihood as leech in chief will be finished.
Well, yeah, I think this is the end of an era. I don't think Jamie Dimon's going to be going into politics. I think he's had too many health issues. Maybe he'll be appointed to some bureaucracy in order to be able to sell his stock. I think he owns a lot of JPMorgan stock.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go into public service, you get to sell off your portfolio tax free because you're doing it for the people.
Exactly. So he'll do that, whatever the eligibility is, 6 months.
Yeah.
Do a 6-month stint as Secretary of Nonsense, and then they'll make him ambassador to like Liechtenstein or something, and that'll be that.
Right. So I guess everybody's just assuming, like, there was a brief blip in the markets when there was this allegation that Joe Biden is going to increase the capital gains tax on those earning over $1 million, which he said is just 0.5% of the population. And so he was going to increase the capital gains tax to 43%, which is 39.6% plus a 3-something percent that you owe for Obamacare on top of capital gains. So that kind of it's like people have ignored it and they don't actually think it's going to happen. So, I mean, even in the worst case, say imagine they pass that, then what happens, right? The wealth gap gets even worse because the wealthy hang on to those assets, right? They just borrow against it instead because you could get a tax write-off for your debt, but you can't get a tax write-off you would pay if you dispose of any of those assets. So they're just going to hang on to them. They're not going to sell them. And like that means there's less supply for other people, for 401ks, for ordinary people, and the price goes up. So like what like it doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, I mean, you make a good point there. So if capital gains tax go up a lot or even marginally, there's no incentive to sell. It's if you need cash, you would simply borrow against your assets, and interest rates are there's no reason to think they're going to raise interest rates, right? So the interest rate will still be on that for that type of transaction less than 1%.
Yes.
In many cases, less than 0.5%. So it doesn't do anything to anybody with a lot of assets. You just reconfigure how you continue the game of increasing and of your net worth. It just changes your strategy, but it doesn't really address the issue that they say they're trying to that they say they're trying to address. So, but it sounds good. It sounds like, hey, we're going to tax the wealthy, and it's not about your nominal tax rate. It's about your adjusted tax rate, for one thing. And there's always tons of ways to lower your adjusted tax rate. Just ask, General Electric that adjusted their tax rate down to negatives under 0, or Amazon, they adjusted their tax rate to 0.
Yeah.
Ask anybody with any serious assets what their adjusted rate of taxes are, and if they tell you the truth, they'll say it's roughly 15% or lower. Right? If you run a hedge fund, there's a loophole in the tax code that lets you effectively give yourself an adjusted tax rate of 15%. So that's the tax rate. Now, you can change the code any way you want, but then doesn't mean that there's not 100 ways to prevent your adjusted rate from going up. So that it's just grandstanding. It sounds good. It's a soundbite, but it doesn't really address the fundamental issue that they're trying to do. And as always, I mean, that's always been the case. So we haven't seen anything different in decades, many decades. And this is no different. So the progressives, on the other hand, the left-wing political parties, of course, they're like, walruses, like, they throw them a fish. Higher tax rate for the rich.
Well, I'll tell you something. There's a diversion. There's how the magic tricks work. You distract them with one thing. So the thing is that Donald Trump did do actually something very progressive, which he got rid of a very regressive tax break, and that is called the SALT deduction. So all these Manhattanites, San Francisco people, places with high state, local, and property tax, they got to write off against their federal taxes all of the tax they paid. And it was Chuck Schumer, for example, lives in Manhattan, well-off guy, thanks to being a politician, and he saved $55,000. It cost him $55,000 a year that Trump got rid of this SALT deduction. So that's just one guy who's not super wealthy, but other people in Manhattan, it cost them hundreds of thousands in taxes a year because of Trump getting rid of that SALT deduction. So now Biden is being pressured really hard to reintroduce this deduction. The Congressional Budget Office, or one of these nonpartisan tax sort of bodies looked at these two deductions. So the capital gains tax, the higher rate going up to 43%, would bring in about 150 billion over 10 years. But what they want to do is do that. Here, we're going to give you $150 billion. We're going to squeeze the rich. But they're going to slip in the SALT deduction again. And that is going to be about 550 billion over 10 years that they're going to hand those same wealthy people.
Yeah.
So that's how they're going to, that's the bait and switch, because they don't know how to, they've got to do this insane capital gains tax thing. And it would double the rate of capital gains and be the highest ever in 100 years of taxes in the United States. So they have to, Biden, the whole, all of Congress, they're super, super liberal, super progressive, they say, but they really, 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 really want that SALT deduction brought back because it really benefits many New Englanders, all the Silicon Valley sorts, all their donor base. So how do you do it without looking like in the middle of Black Lives Matters and all these identity politics and the social justice stuff? Like, how do you say, like, oh, we're evil people, we're evil rich people, and we want our money back. We want 550 billion over the next 10 years. Well, you've got to say we're going to smash the rich people. So so basically the wealthy are agreeing, okay, with Biden, okay, we're going to give you $500, but you give us $100 back, okay?
Yeah.
And it's going to look good. People are going to think, they're going to laud you as a hero. You're going to be like Jamie Dimon on the front cover of Newsweek, being the guy who rescued the system. And you can go on there and say, yeah, oh yeah, my capital gains tax went up, but I feel for society, I care for society, and I want to give back. But you're not going to tell anybody, and no journalist is going to ask you how much you actually got on the other side from the SALT deduction.
Exactly. So the adjusted rate will be the same, or maybe less. And remember, the tax rate only applies to reported income.
Yeah.
And most people in that tax bracket report less than 30% of their income. And you just call up one of the big four accounting agencies that run the global Ponzi scheme, and they're more than happy to help you get your reportable income down to 30% of your actual income. And then on that, of course, you'll say, I'll pay more tax, but also give me the rebate on the SALT deduction at the same time. So my adjustable rate is actually lower. And net, you're going to be paying less tax. And to make up for it on the budget side, they're going to have to print more money. And we see the money printing is ravaging the inflation numbers, right? So now we see it hitting, as we've been saying now for a couple of years, the asset price inflation that was the result of Jamie Dimon hoarding the free money from the Fed and not distributing it, which is the basic job of a bank, but he decided he wasn't into that. Now we're seeing it trickle down to energy and food, and so and commodities like lumber. So, but in the food, we're seeing the agricultural commodity index spike to extreme highs. The lumber price is spiking to extreme highs, and now it's going to start to show up for the average person whose budget is, 40% of their budget is food. That's what.
And yeah, in some places, Dan Collins was tweeting about that. It's about to hit 40%, just as when Max and I were around first reporting on the global insurrection against banker occupation, which then led to Bitcoin birthing onto the world in 2009, the white paper in 2008. But at that same time, you had massive agricultural prices inflation and energy price inflation.
Yeah.
So
right. So the poor people, they're 40% of their budget is food. Right. So if price of food goes up 10, 20, 30%, you are having your quality of life take a serious hit. Okay. Now the top 1/10 of 1%, their food budget is less than 1/10 of 1%.
sure.
Right. They're not spending, if you're making $50 million a year, you're not spending $10 or $15 million a year on food, unless you're like Karstens, who runs the Bank of International Settlements. But judging by his size, maybe he does spend 40% of his millions and millions of dollars in compensation on food. How else would you get to be 800 pounds? But for the average person, their budgetary allocation for food is minute. Whereas the vast majority of the poor in America, and then there's 150 million at or below the poverty line, 40% of whatever they can scrape together goes to food. So that's inflation. That is the result of the money printing. That is the result of making up for the shortfall. That's the result of having really horrible tax policies that cosmetically sound like they're doing something to address the problem, but only make the problem worse. Oh, there's Rachel Maddow.
Everybody wants to smash buy. I went a bit overboard. I did get the bottom. I got 47,200. That was the best price I got this past weekend. So that was pretty much the low. It went a little bit lower, but I got that low there. So I was super happy. I got some more at 48,000. So I was pretty pleased with that sharp drop this past weekend. That was, not something I was disappointed in. I very much prefer stacking at 47 versus now it's just under 55,000. And it's weird. Like one day you'll get there. Like there are some newbies where you see them crying in your group, in the Telegram group, t.me/orange pill. And they're just crying about the price being down. And I'm like, genuinely so excited to get more of the sats. I very much look at the sats, the number of sats I'm getting every time I smash buy. And it's kind of depressing when it goes down and you're like, oh, that sucks. Like that I only got like a fraction of a Satoshi,
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, you want cheaper Bitcoin. And look, there people are confused by this idea of volatility. The fact is that there is no volatility. The coins come out every 10 minutes. The difficulty adjustment happens every 2 weeks. The halvings happen every 4 years. And that's been going on uninterrupted for 12 years.
Sure.
And then when you look at the price, that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. The price reflects the chaos in the fiat world. Don't confuse price with Bitcoin. Just look at and the hash rate, by the way, has always been going up for 12 years. It's always been in a bull market. Hash rate's really never been in a bear market. So those things are not the opposite of volatile. They're incredibly stable. They're incredibly predictable. There's nothing more predictable than the Bitcoin monetary policy. It's the most predictable monetary policy in the world. That's why it's the hardest money in the world. That's why it's killing all these banks off. And yeah, okay, you see some volatility in price versus other fiat because fiat money world is disintegrating. And when we're heading into hyper Bitcoinization, where 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, everything's priced in Bitcoin, then okay, there's no volatility. But by then, the price, of course, will be approaching $1 million. So why not ride the waves from here to $1 million? Why wait until it's at $1 million and then say, oh, okay, I get it. It's actually the new unit of account. I'll convert some of my fiat, but it's going to be too late. If the goal is to, be able to, yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a very interesting way to put it, Max.
Well, thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you.
But the thing is, I want to say that, yes, the margarita's kicking in a little bit. Yes, I feel a little bit tipsy.
Okay,
but
great.
the point is that I want to say is that we talked about that with Adam back this weekend, where he mentioned, that the Bitcoin, the halving had not been priced in, or the halvening. I actually prefer halvening, but I bow to the consensus that people say it's halving, so I'll say it's halving.
That's what I said.
You say halving?
Yeah, that's what I always said. Halvening, it sounds like a horror film.
Yeah, I like that. It feels like, more leprechaun-like. It feels
halvening.
Yeah, I like it. Anyway, so that it had not been priced in, because that's the beauty of Bitcoin is like, even from the very, very early days, like the doubt in the, where all our models are being destroyed
Yes.
as Michael Saylor had said.
Yes.
And it creates a lot of doubt. Like you doubt like that this magic internet money could be real. And that was back in 2010, 2011, 2012.
Everything is doubt, though. I mean, think about the transition from prenatal to postnatal. You're comfortable in the prenatal state, and then you're ripped out, and you're like, all my models are changed. But you can't go back into the womb.
Exactly. Is if you had planned your whole life out based on like just living in a nice, comfortable womb and your mom taking care of you and feeding you.
Yeah.
In a nice-
You wouldn't be prepared for postnatal existence.
Okay. Well, I hadn't thought of that.
Well, that's Bitcoin is a postnatal existence.
And it's
We're
like
being ripped out of the fiat womb into the Bitcoin reality, and nobody is really fully understanding of it. Some people are ahead of others. You know, you read like Robert Breedlove or Nick Carter
or Max Kaiser,
or me or Stacy, right?
If you go to orangepilldailydose.com and subscribe to our newsletter, there's, the guys over at swanbitcoin.com/orangepill, they pick out some really great quotes from Max back in 2013, 12, 14.
So I just posted a video of mine from 20 years ago. It was a documentary made by a Dutch company of me talking about digital scarcity on the internet, the attention as the new currency, and laying out a lot of the fundamental concepts of Bitcoin 20 years ago.
Well, but also, Max, you were a breach baby. So basically, Bitcoin is like a breach baby because, okay, when a breach baby comes out, often they come out like butt first, like kick my ass.
Yeah. Kiss my ass, Doc. Well, I was comfortable here in the womb. Here you are interrupting my soiree with your whole birthing thing. Kiss my ass. Right? And then, so I got fresh. Then he slapped me. It's like, whoa, okay. Let's get it on. All right, let's duke it out right here and now, Doc.
Well, yeah, you often find them in, in the emergency room being delivered, especially, and that's that's the situation today. Jamie Dimon is capitulating because he's basically being birthed into this new Bitcoin reality. He came kicking and screaming. His ass coming out first. And
he came kicking and screaming for years.
Yeah.
It took him 6-7 years.
Exactly.
Portnoy, it only took him 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
He got wrecked a few times.
Mark Cuban is still in the wilderness. Doubtful. He may never come around to understanding where we are.
I don't know. Portnoy still has signs of spinach hands. I'm not convinced totally about the fact that he's got, he was tweeting out some diamonds and hands, and like he's got diamond hands now this time.
Yeah, I think he's coming around.
He might do it. He might be able to do it because he only bought one this time. So he is allegedly on paper worth $100 million from the sale of his company Barstool Sports. So, $50,000. He bought it at $48,000. He said. So if $48,000 is not, he could afford to lose that, right? So maybe he won't get so emotional, and maybe that's his way of dealing with only having one Bitcoin.
Well, that's everyone should take that on board and just like tiptoe your way into the Bitcoin garden. You just smell a few of the flowers. You don't need to go chop down the trees.
Exactly. And save some for us. Right?
Let the Bitcoin do for you what you cannot do for yourself. Get stinking rich. The way to do that is tiptoeing through the Bitcoin garden, and don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get over your skis.
Somebody wants to know
what
if you can play that ukulele.
No, I can't. I mean, I can't play it. I can play with it, but I can't actually knock out a tune.
Somebody says, Yellow says, should we celebrate our Bitcoin birthdays now? Of course, Satoshi disappeared 10 years ago yesterday.
Yes. Apparently, he was bullied off by Gavin, and those guys bullied him, and he said, okay, fuck you. I'm just going to disappear.
Yeah. Well, then we arrived 10 years ago, like this week.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean Max is Satoshi.
No.
You reincarnated as, our first episode of Kai's Report talking about Bitcoin was about 10 years ago this week.
That's right. we started talking about Bitcoin, and we started to go through the metamorphosis that one goes through in the Bitcoin journey, and then we really went into the orange pill, which is kind of post Bitcoin reality, where we're not yet at the hyper Bitcoinization where Bitcoin is the unit of account and everything is priced in Bitcoin. But the orange pill is where your mind is already there. So you live in a world, a world where you are living hyper Bitcoinization. So
I'm pretty impressed about how early you were in terms of orange pilled. Like, okay, I'm an early Bitcoiner, but I think like I don't think I was fully orange pilled until like a few years ago. Whereas, like, I think you understood the mystery and magic and beauty of it earlier than I did.
right. Well, the protocol, yeah, I suppose. I mean, we've been talking about that in all various ways for a long time. There's a lot about it that is mysterious. There's a lot about it that's aesthetically beautiful. There's a lot about it that, for me, goes back to my even early days on Wall Street in the 1980s, early 1980s, where you come to understand that all your models are broken. When you become a stockbroker, you realize that everything you thought about money is wrong. And I say, like, the way a lot of people who go to work at industrial farming, or they work at chicken farms and things like that,
Factory farming.
factory farming, they become vegetarian, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's so revolting, what have you. So when you work on Wall Street, you realize how incredibly ridiculous the whole system is, the way it works. So again, and Bitcoin comes around, and you see that how it is counterbalancing so much of that. And so, yeah, but there's so much more mystery left. There's so much yet to happen. There's so much more price appreciation. People are now converting, they're falling into the rabbit hole. They're giving up, trying to fight the tide of Bitcoin and what it does to people's mind. And we see this happening more and more. People are coming over to this way of thinking, and it changes. All your models are broken. So the orange pill is really living intellectually on that plane of the relentless optimistic plane,
Yeah.
where it's just everything is basically optimistic at this point on the orange pill plane, because all the other models that contributed to the disaster that we had before Bitcoin are now visibly and noticeably broken. And more you hear people say, well, the problem is that the whole system is broken, right? People are starting to stop trying to fix the system. They're recognizing that it's beyond fixing. The political system, the economic system is
Yeah.
beyond fixing. It's just
Yes.
basically broken. It's shattered. So therefore, then the only option for you is to either embrace relentless positivity with Bitcoin or go down with the ship. And so a lot of people are choosing life, like, Choose Life, which is another great film that we talk about all the time.
That's right.
Choose life.
Train spotting.
Train spotting.
Train spotting.
Train spotting.
Hey, I'm going to play the music again until you get to, we're at 508 likes. We're going to get to 600. And then people were asking about whether or not you were a banker. They didn't know that you worked on Wall Street. We'll talk about that once we get to 600. So talk about relentless optimism. This is
chair dance.
Oh yeah, there's chair yoga, for old people.
What about goat?
I want to do, when we go to Bitcoin Miami, we're gonna do some chair dancing at the after parties. Yeah, me, you, and Bitcoin Tina. We're the Boomer Gen X crew. It's 544. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to drink my margarita. You don't take the time to smash the like, then I'm not going to take the time to
Smash the
talk.
like, smash the like.
Da da da. Okay, it's going back up. Right. There were some funny comments on the full dose this past weekend with Adam back, and it's it's funny. You know, every wave of new bees to Bitcoin for the past 10 years, and there's a new wave every few months, right? So they all have to learn the same thing. And it was just funny to read people like, who is this dude? He talks too soft. And you're like,
Right.
okay. If just go, pump and dump your Dogecoin, you shitcoiner. It's like, if you don't know who Adam Back is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you clearly haven't read the white paper.
True.
And, one day they'll look back, hopefully they'll return and leave a comment in 5 years under their previous comment saying, wow, what a dork I was. Like, I was like I was a total Dave Portnoy here.
Right, but it also shows maturity in the asset class that people don't even know where it came from, and they just accept it, right? So we've gone from the idea where people will never use this thing to where people are addicted to using it. So I remember back in the mid 90s, people really thought the internet was not going to take off and that it was just a fad. Even the New York Times ran a story like, well, the internet's a fad. It's never going to take off. No one's going to bother with this. And then suddenly it just took off. And people couldn't tell you how the internet works or who started the internet or how the technology works.
True.
Or where it comes from. And they have no idea. They just use it. So same thing with Bitcoin. I mean, it's just becoming ubiquitous and people are just going to use it and just assume it was always there. I mean, a lot of Gen millennials and the Gen Z, right? They've never known a world without the internet. So they just completely normal to them like oxygen. And this will be the same for Bitcoin, pretty soon. People will just be born into it and assume and never imagine a world that could have existed without it.
And the really cool thing is, like, no matter what, the story of Bitcoin cannot be told ever 50 years from now, 100 years from now, without referring at all to Max and Stacy, because all of the any footage that you're looking for pre 2015, it's almost all Max and Stacy, and the first Bitcoin conference, of course, in Prague. Those photos that were taken from us. So there's very, very little, like, it was not chronicled at all because it was just enough before the social media became ubiquitous. It was still kind of early back in 2009 and 10. Yeah. So very few people were on Twitter, and it wasn't like this huge thing that it is now. So I think that's kind of interesting. It doesn't matter at all, like, what we do from here is just like whatever we're embedded in those early days, and you literally can't tell the story without referring to those images and footage that we shot.
Yep, that's right. We're pioneers on the trail. And,
yeah, we'll be in like a Ken Burns documentary in a slow. That's what I did on actually one of those, slow transition across the screen. And it'll be me in this wig, and they'll be like, and Max in his white wig, and they'll be like, these two nutters.
Yeah, the Ken Burns style. Hey, he's got apparently a new one out, 3-part series on Hemingway, which hopefully we'll get into soon. Looking forward to that.
I am looking forward to that. Hemingway was a pretty awesome writer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, who's this guy Adam Back? Like, he should speak louder.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you should shut the fuck up, maybe. Okay. I like how, like, that I can see in the I'm looking at the YouTube here. Like, the color of this orange makes my skin, like, it makes it look more, how do you say? It's like more cold rather than warm. So my skin is naturally more like warm colored, yellowish, more that side, rather than white, like bluish. But it makes me look really, it does, makes your skin, it makes you look like a character out of some Norwegian sort of fairy tale, Grimm's fairy tale or something.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, in France, you would be criticized if you had more than 3 colors,
Oh, true.
and that would include your hair color. So
True.
you could only then wear. See, you have orange, and black. So
I've got
for
3.
French,
One. This is the same.
yeah,
1, 2, 3.
right. So that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine by French standards for clothing. And in France, women are really shunned from wearing more than 3 colors
That's
at a
true.
time.
That's
And very
true.
often you'll hear when women gossip, they'll say, "Oh my God, she had on 5 colors."
Well, one of my girlfriends who's is she's very successful. Runs a huge global advertising company, and she was like once had when she was sitting with us for drinks, and she's like, "Oh, Stacy, I just like I wish I admire that you can wear all those colors." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm being serious. It's not like a passive aggressive, like French people sort of insult. I'm saying I'm only allowed to wear 3, even though I'm very successful. But
Yes.
I will be, my friends will tell me, why are you wearing 4 colors?
Yeah. It's rigid.
I
Brutal.
don't think that was really a French accent, but
No,
nevertheless.
that's fine. I got it. But it's one of those social cues that go unnoticed to foreigners. You know, you show up and you're really a pariah because you don't know these myriad of social cues that one must learn to fit in with French society.
But I also like that also brings me to another thing that Adam Back had said, which I thought was funny because I kind of caught it at the time, but like people are going bonkers in the comments because he mentioned the guy who runs Aker, and they set up CT to mine Bitcoin, and he said that amazing stuff. It's something 118-year-old energy mining company, and he said the guy was Swedish, but he's Norwegian, but. Of course, the Norwegians are going bonkers. Like, the guy, he's Norwegian. He's not Swedish. And I'm like, the rivalry between Scandinavians who obviously look the same to everybody outside of Scandinavia. I'm half Finnish. But, the rest of Scandinavia, of course, the Norwegians and the Swedes, in the words of Larry David, are they really, like, don't you want to insult them? Like, it feels good to have them be angry about something. So when he said Swedish, I thought it was just really funny. I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah. To hell those Norwegians and their fjords. Ha!
There's a lot of Norway and Sweden are obviously the two thousands of years of power, right, in that region. So the Danes, the Icelandic, the Faroese, the Finns. They all like to they all like to mock those bastards, those imperial people.
Heck to the yeah.
Right. So I guess it's almost time to go. I'm just going to quickly look at the comments, and if you have any questions, send them to us, and give the audience a round of applause.
Yay, audience.
Of course, with yellow being in the comments there, we do need yellow pop cat. That's next week, next microdose. I'm going to have it in there.
Oh, good.
As the
Yeah. I need the yellow pop cat.
We need the yellow pop cat. That could be a sound effect in there. We're hoping to have on this full dose this Sunday, Sean Culkin. What's the team he's with? The New Orleans Saints or something, or is it the Missouri Chiefs or something?
What sport?
Football.
Oh yeah, football. I think it's the Chiefs. He's at the Chiefs now.
The Chiefs, yeah.
The Chiefs, yeah.
I like Tom Brady just because I don't like Tom Brady, but I like him. Yes, he's handsome, but 2, he's also like just that he's like almost Gen X, and he's an old timer and like an underdog in that way.
Yeah. Somehow he always manages to come across as an underdog, even though they win every year. It's like I can't. We're gonna try, even though we're on the underdog. and the point spread are always against him, but he always wins. So
I think that's funny. And yeah, of course, you saw like with this freaking Oscars, the lowest ever rating, which is like all these woke scolds who were just like shouting at everybody and telling everybody how much better we are than you. And of
yeah.
course, it got less than 10 million views, but none of them wore masks, right? Walking up the red carpet. None of these superstar like Hollywood people.
Right.
And yet they spent all of their time scolding Tom Brady
Yeah,
for setting a bad example, showing up at the Super Bowl with no mask.
Right.
And he made a choice. He could have worn a mask and you know, as an example to the people.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Well, I don't know what to say about the Academy Award Hollywood people. It's they've they like are killing off their audience, right? I mean, nobody's interested anymore, and
Good.
the product has become very stale and repetitive, and so they're losing out to other forms of entertainment.
So speaking of entertainment, Max's walrus sound freaks out my cats.
Yep.
Somebody says, "Do the walrus again before you go, please."
I'm going to save that for next time. I know it's a very exciting walrus impression.
Well, this was fun, and we'll have fun returning and mocking Dave Portnoy when we know he'll sell his Bitcoin. He'll be shaking out.
I hope not. I think he might be scaling in now, you know, because it'll hit a new high. It'll go to like 65, 70,000, and he'll be like, I just went in more. I get it. Keep buying.
I suppose I didn't really do the smash buy, but I did start to, and I said like,
that was close enough.
Like, I did say that I went overboard this weekend. Like I did 2 or 3 a day of a normal day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was like overloaded with smash buying. So I went berserk at 47, 48. That's the fact, Jack. So if you were too scared to smash buy then you should do it now at swanbitcoin.com/orange pill.
Yeah, definitely. Just go for it. Get the smash buys in over there at Swan. That's where you got to go. Swan Bitcoin, get the smash buy. It's the way to go.
Oh, I guess I need this. And a round of applause for Max and Stacy and for the audience.